So, dear students, so today we will have a discussion on the topic called as wave optics, and we will be going through the important points related to this topic. We expect a lot of questions in competitive examinations from this optics, so it becomes very necessary for us to undergo revision. So let us start the things. Basically, the topic wave optics is started with the concept of wavefront. The locus of all the points of a medium which are vibrating in the same phase or state of vibration is called wavefront. Or a wavefront is the locus of all the points which are in phase. So depending upon the shape of the source of light, wavefront can be classified into two types. If it is a point source, then it is a spherical wavefront. If it is a linear source, so it is a cylindrical wavefront. And if it is a source which is at a larger distance, so then we get a plane wavefront. So now spherical wavefront is produced by point source of light because of locus of all the points which are equidistant from point source is a sphere. The cylindrical wavefront is produced by the linear source of light like slit because all the points equidistant from the linear source lie on the surface of a cylinder. A point or a linear source produces a plane wavefront at infinity or a large distance. A divergent or a convergent beam gives rise to spherical or cylindrical wavefront, whereas a parallel beam of light gives rise to plane wavefront. But at large distance from a source or portion of a spherical or cylindrical wavefront is a plane wavefront. Now here he has given you the intensity and amplitude variation. For spherical wavefront, it will be proportional to 1 by r square. Intensity A is proportional to 1 by r. Cylindrical wavelength I is proportional to 1 by r and A is proportional to 1 by root r. And the plane wavefront I is proportional to r to the power 0 and A is also proportional to r to the power 0. It means for plane wavefront, intensity and amplitude will remain constant. It will be not changing with the distance. Now coming to the characteristics of a wavefront, the phase difference between various particles on the wavefront is zero. These wavefronts travel with the speed of light in all directions in an isotropic medium. A point source of light always gives rise to a spherical wavefront in an isotropic medium. In an anisotropic medium, it travels with different velocities in different directions. So phase difference, path difference, time difference. So there is a relation, different relations are given to you here. The argument of sine or cosine function in the expression of displacement of a wave is defined as phase. For displacement y equals to a sine omega t, the term omega t represents phase or instantaneous phase. Now phase difference. The difference between the phase of two waves at a point is called as phase difference. That is, if y equals to a1 sine omega t and y2 equals to a2 sine omega t plus phi, so phase difference will be equal to phi. Path difference, whenever there is a phase difference existing between the two waves, so there will be corresponding path difference. That is the difference between the path length of the two waves meeting at a point, and the relation between phase difference and path difference is given by delta x equals to lambda by 2 pi times delta phi. So here delta x refers to path difference and delta phi refers to phase difference. Time difference. The time difference between the waves meeting at a point is given by t by 2 pi times phi, where t defines the time period of a wave. And the difference in the path traversed by two light waves at a time of arrival at a point is called as path difference. So this is another different definition for path difference. The difference in the phase angles expressed in radians between the two waves of a time at the time interval or at the time of arrival at a point is called as phase difference, which is 2 pi by lambda into x. Huygens principle, the Dutch physicist Christian Huygens in 1678 suggested a convincing wave theory of light. He assumed light as a mechanical wave propagating in hypothetical medium called ether. According to Huygens, every point on a given wavefront known as primary wavefront acts as a source of secondary disturbance or secondary wavelengths, so which propagates in all the directions in a homogeneous medium with same speed. A tangential surface to the secondary wavelengths in forward direction gives you the position of new wavefront called secondary wavefront. So by using Huygens principle, we can find out where the secondary wavefront will be or in which direction the wave will be traveling. This principle can be used to geometrically construct the position of a new wavefront at a given instant of time if the position of a wavefront at an earlier instant of time was known. So using this principle, Huygens successfully proved laws of reflection, refraction, and phenomena of interference. So let us see how he has proved this. So now principle of superposition. So when two or more than two waves superpose each other, that a common particle of the medium, then the resultant displacement of the particle is equal to the vector sum of individual displacements. So that is how we are having y equals to vector y equals to vector y1 plus vector y2. So where vector y is the resultant displacement and y1 and y2 are the respective displacements of the first and second waves. Interference of light, the phenomena of modification in the intensity of light due to redistribution of light energy in the region of superposition of two or more light waves, is known as interference of light. So in this phenomena, the redistribution of energy and intensity will take place. Due to interference of light, the intensity of light is not uniform throughout the area of observation. At some places, the intensity will be maximum, and at some places, it will be minimum. So interference is exhibited by longitudinal waves or transverse waves or by mechanical waves. Now, constructive interference, if the resultant intensity is greater than the sum of two individual intensities, then the interference is said to be constructive. If it is less than the sum of two individual intensities, then the interference is said to be destructive. There is no violation of law of conservation of energy in interference. Here, the energy from the points of minimum energy is shifted to the points of maximum energy. There are types of sources. There are two types of sources, coherent and incoherent sources. So two sources are said to be coherent if they emit light of same, if they emit light waves of same wavelength and start with same phase or have a constant phase difference. Now, incoherent sources, they are two independent monochromatic sources of same wavelength, but the waves are not in phase and they are said to be non-coherent or incoherent. This is because atoms cannot emit light waves in same phase, and these sources are said to be incoherent sources. Now, by using independent laser beams, it has been possible to record interference pattern. By the coherent sources may be both real or both virtual, or one real and other virtual. The distance between two coherent sources must be small and in the order of the wavelength of the light. So only then interference will be observed. So method of obtaining the coherent sources, it can be obtained by following method. First is division of wavefront. As you can see, this can be done by using, as in by Young's double slit experiment, or by using Lloyd's mirror, or by using Fresnel biprism. We get a division of wavefront here, and by that we get two coherent sources. Division of amplitude. So here what will happen in this is, in oil film Michelson's interferometer and Newton's ring, the amplitude will be divided, and that will give us the required coherent sources. So this is how this is really the two paths or by which we can obtain the coherent sources. So interference within incoherent sources. So in incoherent sources, we observe that there will not be any fringe pattern. The phase difference between these two sources will be equal to, the two sources will be equal to so rapidly and randomly that the interference maxima and minima are not observed by the eye, and the screen appears to be uniformly illuminated. In this case, resultant intensity is just sum of two intensities, I equals to I1 plus I2. The interference of n coherent waves, here he has given you. So I equals to root I1 plus root I2 plus root I3 plus so on till root In whole square, which will be further n square times I naught. So if there are n incoherent waves each of intensity I naught, then the resultant intensity is, so I equals to I1 plus I2 plus I3 plus In. So it will be n times I naught. Amplitude will be equal to root of A1 square plus A2 square plus 2 A1 A2 cos phi. And intensity I will be equal to I1 plus I2 plus 2 root I1 I2 cos phi. If A1 and A2 are equal, I1 and I2 are equal, then we are having A equals to 2A cos phi naught phi by 2, or I equals to 4 I naught cos square phi by 2, where phi is the phase difference between them as they meet. The average intensity is given by I max plus I minimum divided by 2, which is equal to I1 plus I2 or A1 square plus A2 square. Intensity is proportional to the width of the slit, and which is directly proportional to the square of the amplitude. So I is proportional to W, which is proportional to A square. So we get a here shortcut which is used for numericals. That is I1 by I2 will be equal to W1 by W2, and which is equal to A1 by A2 whole square. So ratio of maximum and minimum intensities, I max by I minima. So I max equals to root I1 plus root I2 whole square. I minima equals to root I1 minus root I2 whole square. So when we put this, it will be root I1 plus root I2 divided by root I1 minus root I2 whole square. So it will be root of I1 by I2 plus 1 and root of I1 minus I2 plus minus 1 whole square. In terms of amplitude, it will be A1 plus A2 by A1 minus A2 whole square, which is equal to A1 by A2 plus 1 and A1 by A2 minus 1 whole square. That is root I1 by I2 will be equal to A1 by A2, which is equal to root of I max by I minima plus 1 and root of I max by I minima minus 1. If two waves having equal intensities meet at two locations P and Q with part difference delta 1 and delta 2 respectively, then the ratio of resultant intensity at a point P and Q will be IP by IQ will be equal to cos square phi 1 by 2 and divided by cos square phi 2 by 2, and cos square phi into delta 1 by lambda and cos square phi delta 2 by lambda. So this is how we get the things. So fringe visibility is a measure of intensity contrast between the bright and dark bands. With the help of visibility, knowledge about the coherence fringe contrast of an interference pattern is obtained. So V equals to I max by minus I minima divided by I max plus I minima, which is equal to 2 into root of I1 by I1 I2 divided by I1 plus I2. So if I minima equals to 0, V equals to 1, and that is fringe visibility will be best. Also, if I max equals to 0, V equals to minus 1, and if I max equals to I minima, V will be equal to 0. So constructive interference, destructive interference difference between these two will be having. So major differences to highlight here will be, so here path phase difference phi will be 0, and there it will be 180 degree or 2n minus 1 into pi. So other than that, path difference will be n lambda, there it will be 2n minus 1 into lambda by 2. So other than that, maximum intensity, minimum intensity equations already we have seen, so that will remain same. Similarly, maximum amplitude and minimum amplitude will be seen here. Now, Young's double slit experiment. So here you will be having two slits S1 and S2. Distance between them will be D. You are having a point source S. So now at point 2, you will find out that there will be brightest spot, and then at point P, bright or dark spot will have conditions which will be defined there, and we try to define it according to it. So now here path difference delta x will be equal to d sin theta for theta being small. Delta x will be equal to yd by d. So where d is the capital D is the distance between the slits and the screen. Now condition for maxima. So here it will be y equals to n lambda d by d, and sin theta will be equals to n lambda by d. Shifting of fringe pattern in YDSC interference, this can be seen. So if a transparent thin film of mica or glass is put in the part of one of the waves, then the whole fringe pattern gets shifted, and that shift will be equal to capital D by small d into mu minus 1 into t, where mu is the refractive index and t is the thickness of the medium which is placed there. And if shift is equivalent to n fringes, then n equals to mu into mu minus 1 divided by t, or mu minus 1 divided by lambda into t, or t will be equal to n lambda divided by mu minus 1. So shift is independent of order of the fringe. So this is an important point. Now missing wavelength. So it will be observed that if the in front of one of the slits, if the screen is point is kept, so at that point there will be one wavelength which will be missing. In that case, it will be, say, delta equals to S2P minus S1P, and path difference P will be equals to the capital D square plus small d square minus d. So it will be d into 1 plus d square by d square whole to the power 1 by 2 minus d. So basically from binomial expansion, if you ignore the higher term, then you get it as d square by 2d. So this is how we get it. Now here we get the wavelength lambda, it is missing wavelength at P will be equal to lambda, which will be equal to d square divided by 2n minus 1 into d. For dark it will be, and for bright it will be n into d. So when Young's double slit experiment arrangement is kept in a medium of refractive index mu, so the beta dash will be equal to beta minus mu, beta divided by mu. That is, beta dash is less than beta, intensity will remain same. So when slits do not emit light of same intensity, then the dark fringes will not be exactly dark, they become slightly brighter, and the bright fringes will become less bright. So when white light is used to play in place of monochromatic light, so central fringe will be white, as well as wavelengths are, all the wavelengths are present, and all other fringes will be colored. First maxima of the central maxima will be of violet color. So two wavelengths may have maxima at the same position given by n1 lambda 1 equals to n2 lambda 2, where nth maxima of lambda 1 coincide with the n2 maxima of the lambda 2. So we get the things. Doppler effect in light. So the apparent change in the frequency of the light due to the relative motion between the source of light and observer, we call it as Doppler effect. So we are having two frequency, one is actual, the other is apparent, and then we have this formula. So there will be change in frequency and change in wavelength. The apparent change in wavelength delta lambda will be given by lambda by c into 2 pi r by t, where r is the radius of the star. Application of Doppler effect. So it is used in radar and sonar, and it is used to calculate the velocities of star and galaxies by spectral shift. Now coming to the second important phenomena, that is diffraction of light. So in diffraction, we see that there will be the bending of light around the edges of the obstacle, and here we observe the bright and dark spots, but here alternatively it will not be observed. So here the intensity of bright spots goes on decreasing. So here it will be observed when you are having a single slit, and we try to calculate the things here. So here width of central maxima B naught will be equal to, or beta naught will be equal to 2 lambda d by d, and angular width will be equal to 2 lambda by d. So central maxima will be having the largest width, and width of central maximum is B naught equals to 2f lambda by a, where d is the distance between the slit and the screen, and f is the focal length of the lens. So this is how we get it in terms of focal length. This is the equation. Now minima occurs at a point on either side of the central maxima such that the path difference between the waves will be n lambda. or d sin theta will be equal to n lambda and sin theta will be equal to n lambda by d. The secondary maximum where the path difference width of the waves with two ends will be that delta equals to 2n plus 1 lambda by 2. So it will be sin theta equals to 2n plus 1 into lambda divided by 2d. So here the width of central maxima is directly proportional to wavelength. That is, it will be more for red color and less for blue color. And for obtaining Fraunhofer diffraction, focal length of the second lens is used. Wx is proportional to lambda, which is proportional to f, which is proportional to 1 by a. Width will be more for narrower slit. So by decreasing linear width of the slit, the width of the central maxima increases. So these are the points. Now coming to the resolving power of telescope. So it is given by d divided by 1.22 lambda, that is equal to 1 by theta. So other than that, you are having resolving power of microscope, which is given by 2 mu sin theta by 1.22 lambda, where mu is the refractive index and lambda is the wavelength of the light. Now limit of resolution will be given by, say, different concepts here. So it will be a limit of resolution of normal human eye is 1 degree, that is 1 by 60 times, sorry, 1 minute, right? So it will be 1 by 60 times of a degree. So resolving power will be equal to 1 by 60 into pi by 180 times radians, and this is how we get it as d by d ratio as 3 greater than 3 into 10 raised to minus 4. Now comparison between interference and diffraction is given to you in this slide. You can just have the things here. You will get a number of points in order to describe interference and diffraction pattern. So this is how it will be. So now moving further, the third concept, polarization of light. So the interference and diffraction are possible for both longitudinal and transverse waves, whereas polarization is possible only for transverse waves. The light is an electromagnetic transverse wave, in which the oscillating entities are electric and magnetic field vectors. So what will happen is here the electric field vector will be vibrating in all the planes. When we restrict it to vibrate in one particular plane, so then we call that that light as polarized light and the phenomenon as polarization. So now here what will happen is there will be the plane in which the polarized light will be obtained. You call that plane as plane of polarization. So it will be perpendicular to the direction of propagation of the vibrations taking place in all the directions. So there is no question of polarization in longitudinal waves. So this is the representation here. So polarization of light and the process of confining the vibrations of electric vectors of light waves to one direction, or the process of confining the vibrations of light waves to a plane. So here unpolarized light, as we can observe, is given by the following diagrams. Representation will be done in this way, and polarized light will be represented in this particular plane. So if the electric field vector is confined to a plane passing through the direction of propagation, it is called plane polarized light. So it is represented by arrow components or with dot components as shown in the diagram. Now plane of vibration and plane of polarization. So the plane of containing the direction of vibration and the direction of propagation of light is called as plane of vibration, or a plane in which vibration takes place is called as plane of vibration. The plane passing through the direction of propagation and containing no vibration is called as plane of polarization. So as you can see, the plane of vibration is given by A, B, C, D, and the plane of polarization is given by E, F, G, H. So this is how we are having it. So the plane of vibration and plane of polarization are always mutual perpendicular to each other. Now coming to the Malu's law, which states that the intensity of the polarized light transmitted through the analyzer is proportional to the cosine square of the cosine of the angle between the plane of transmission of analyzer and the plane of transmission of polarizer. So this is basically represented by I equals to I naught cos square theta. A will be equal to, or A square will be equal to A naught square cos square theta, and if theta is equal to 0, then I will be equal to I naught, and if theta equals to 45 degree, then I will be equal to I naught by 2. If theta equals to 90 degree, then I will be 0. So this is how we get it. So here percentage of polarization can be calculated by I max minus I minima divided by I max plus I minima into 100. So therefore the intensity is given by I equals to I naught by 2 into cos square theta after passing through analyzer. So this is how we get it. If n polarizers are arranged so that the first and last ones are crossed, theta is the angle between any two successive polarizers. I is the intensity of incident light. Then intensity of emerging light is I dash equals to I by 2 cos to the power x theta, where x will be equal to 2 into n minus 1. In case of three polarizers P1, P2, and P3, theta 1 is the angle between the transmission axis of P1 and P2, theta 2 between P2 and P3. Then the intensity of emerging light from P3 will be I equals to I naught by 2 cos square theta 1 into cos square theta 2. So this is a shortcut if you are having three polarizers. The polarization can be also obtained by reflection. So here in 1801, Maloo proved it. So there will be, and when an ordinary light is reflected by a sheet of glass, then it will be, it comes as partially polarized or completely plane polarized light. The degree of polarized depends upon the angle of incidence here. So Brewster's law, at one particular angle of incidence, there will be one particular angle of incidence for which the reflected and refracted lights will be perpendicular to each other and they will be completely polarized. So the law is called as Brewster's law. The angle is called, the angle of incidence is called as the Brewster's angle or the polarizing angle. So it is basically the angle of incidence. So here the ratio will be given by the tangent of the polarizing angle is equal to the refractive index of the medium. So tan theta p, that is tangent of the polarizing angle, will be equal to refractive index, that is mu. So theta p will be equal to then tan inverse of mu, or mu will be equal to 1 by sin c. So tan theta p will be equal to mu by 1. Sin theta p will be equal to mu divided by root of mu square plus 1. Cos theta p will be equal to 1 divided by root of mu square plus 1. So we get this value of sin theta p and cos theta p from the triangle. Polarizing angle depends on nature of material and color of light. So this is an important point to note here. Now coming to the polarites, so they are artificially made polarizing material in the form of sheets or plates capable of producing strong beam of plane polarized light. So they are used to produce analyzer and polarizer combination to produce plane polarized light. They are used to view three-dimensional pictures. They are used to make sunglasses. They are used in window panes of trains, especially of an aeroplane. So this is all about your wave optics.